Now, the last thing that you and I wanted to talk about today was just a little bit a discussion about some of the things that we've been hearing around the rumor mill in regards to the OVFL. In the last few years, well, obviously you being an ex-OVFLer yourself, as well as I am, playing in the one of the few original teams in the OVFL. We have been hearing that there is some potential alterations that could be happening with the OVFL. Why don't you let everybody know what we've been hearing on the rumor mill and what some of the things are that we want people to be aware of going into this summer season next year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the main thing is there's changes ahead. There's no question. I'm not in a position to confirm or deny anything. I mean, you would think that any kind of official statement would be made by who we elect and kind of look to for the leadership of football in Canada, which is both, in our case, Ontario Football Alliance, OFA, and also Football Canada. I think from what I know, which is limited, is Football Canada seems to take kind of the role of safety and rules, and we know that changes are coming down. They have been working with several Ontario organizations and leagues and the OFA to try to make the game safer, which is a good thing, obviously. And one of the rules they're talking about is these consecutive seasons. So whether you're going to have a limited amount of weeks of game football that you can play in a season, so whether that be 12 or 15, whatever, basically would equal that amount of time to practice and play 15 games in an entire year. Well, obviously, with that rule, if it was to go in effect, that would obviously change the landscape overnight with the way that things have been running since, like you said, since 2000 when I joined the very first Myers Riders OVFL team. So I mean, kids are probably going to they're going to have to choose where their program is and where their allegiance is for the year. The other rule that we have heard that we know for sure is coming down is that you're not going to be allowed to play 2 seasons at once. And, without even digging too deep, we know there are a ton of kids playing high school and NCAFA right now in the midget league. We know that the East predominantly has more high school football teams, and now that we're starting to work in there, I mean, we know this is no surprise. This isn't a secret, and it makes me wonder that we are aware these changes are coming down, but just because they're a year away, we're still kids aren't really responding to it, or as a community, we're kind of aware of it, but it's happening. So I'm just wondering. It'd be interesting to get a dialogue with you about that, about those changes and what you think is going to be the fallout of this.
Well, as always, what I think the most important thing is that we need to have Football Canada and the OFA. I just wish there was a little more transparency in what they're trying to do and a little more communication in what they are going to do. Being a person who had, like you said, I've been around the sport for the last 6 years pretty much all the time and always trying to figure out what the next thing is. And I always have found personally that it's been very difficult to determine what's going to be happening with the OVFL and the OFA and Football Canada and high school football and NCAFA. I remember specifically speaking to a kid. He was a Pee-wee H kid moving up to Bantam. He played OVFL, he played high school football, and he played NCAFA football. I think because he was on the Myers Riders team that ended up going to a championship, they played 10, 12 games in the OVFL season. He played 7 games in the high school season, and he played another 11 in the NCAFA season. And we're talking about a kid in a span of 5 months playing more games than an NFLer would play. And that is just, and he's obviously one of the small examples of a person who plays all the games and plays on winning teams and has but that's not good. And when Football Canada is trying to restrict the amount of headshots, obviously extremely important, restrict the amount of injuries, has insurance, that they have to manage with all these franchises, I think it's really important that they are very clearly communicating with the members of their institutions, which is the players and the parents and the coaches and the organizations, with what they're going to enforce and when. As we know, these rules are actually in place. They just don't ever enforce them. These are rules. When 2 years ago, I know they implemented that you can't play a certain amount of games within 72 hours. And I know for a fact that some coaches in high school would try to say, oh, that kid can't play because he just played in a CAFA game 2 days ago. And that happened last year when I was watching with the NCAFA midget programs, or this was 2 years ago actually. So what I would like to see is a little more transparency. I would love for somebody from Football Canada or for the OFA to come onto the podcast, have a very open and honest dialogue with myself and yourself, and just let people know really what you're trying to do and be transparent about it. Because at the end of the day, we're all working towards the same thing. We're all on the same team here. We just need to make sure that we don't sort of have a civil war where we destroy all the great things that we've created over the last 50 years in Canada with football.
Right, and I think you said it. Like, at the end of the day, the OFA is designed, and it's a good thing to have a provincial body looking out for the best interests of all these organizations. But I mean, you can't argue with the fact that Ontario has been, it's been so disorganized for this sport, and it's been allowed. Somebody has allowed it to get completely way out of hand with the amount of leagues and teams and competing. And I just, we talk to players, we talk to parents all the time, and having gone through the system from an 8-year-old all the way through to the end of university as a 5th year of this game in Canada, I think all coaches just want an infrastructure. They want to be told, hey, listen, this is how it works. Go in there and coach them up as best you can. Develop them as best you can, and this is what we're striving for. And without that clear goal in mind with what we're trying to do with these kids and with competing forces, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. And I mean, there are a lot of great things happening. I don't mean to sound that we're destitute, but when you say transparency, I agree. I mean, I think we talked about the OFA, and we had Dan Lachance, Canada president, on, and he was expressing his concerns about maybe some of the decisions about limiting contact at the tyke or mosquito level, which is, the 8 and 9, 10, 11-year-olds, and that kind of going against some of the going against what we need, which is to teach these kids how to properly tackle. At the CIS level, maybe reducing tackling is a good idea, but certainly we can't be hindering ourselves at the younger ages of coaching it a counterproductive way. But that aside, I mean, we talked about that, and we got a bit of ruffles from the OFA on that. At that time, I think you had invited somebody to come on the podcast, and I think that's an open invitation. Am I right, Tyler?
It's always an open invitation. One of the key things that we want to promote here on the HESN podcast is open and honest dialogue. We want to make sure that nobody feels like we live in Western society where free speech is not only a right, but it's a fundamental function of our society. And we really want people to come on here. We want people to communicate with their people, which is all the football players in the entire province of Ontario and the city of Ottawa. And we want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to not defend yourself, because we're not attacking you, but we want you guys to just communicate with people about why you're doing the things that you do, why you're maybe not being able to implement them as fast as you can. If there's anything that parents and players can do to help the process move along faster. We just want the sport to succeed. We want the sport to thrive. And like you said earlier, the word disorganized isn't the word I always think of. I think the word fragmented is always the best word, because I think what happens is, because it's such a huge body of people that you need to organize in Ontario, it's a huge, vast space of cities and a geographical area. People don't have time to wait for one body to make the decision. So someone says, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do it. And it's not a negative thing completely. It's about these people that are doing the OFCs and the OVFLs and all these leagues that exist in the province. They're doing it out of necessity, because it's so difficult for these single organizations to control it all. And all we want to do is It's an open invitation. Message boards, social media. Come to Ottawa. Talk to us at the games. We're going to be at the EFC 3 on November 11th, 8 p.m. Bell Sensplex in Canada. So we'd love to see you guys there, see what we're doing, and we just want to make sure that football thrives. That's really all it's about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it's certainly like, I don't mean for my tone personally to be coming down on the OFA, but certainly, that is the number one function is leadership of the game. So I think that's really, I think the football community is crying out for some leadership right now. We're hoping OFA is that body that will do that. So in terms of your original idea about the OVFL, the rumor is that league is done and it's an end of an era where the OVFL will cease to exist. I think, if I look at the evolution of that first year when I went against Nick Wishart to the Toronto running back with the gold cleats, that epic Myers team for those couple of years that fell short at the semifinal, and all the players that went on to the CIS from that level, the OVFL really had the potential to be a phenomenal league, and you know what? It couldn't do it. It couldn't do it, and I feel the OVFL is over in my mind, and I'm excited to see what will replace it. And we've heard about this rumors. I'm sure everyone's heard about the Premier Football League. Nothing but rumors at this point, as far as I'm concerned, because we literally we can't go on anything because we haven't heard anything. So, I would think that the OFA, this is a great time. Certainly, it can't wait more than the spring to hear anything about what's happening with the rule changes. And for an organization that does what it does, I mean, they organize the insurance for everyone that plays, not necessarily every high school, but they have a lot of members, certainly all the youth and city programs. I think it's about $25 or $30 for every player going to this organization to organize some things. And you know what? In my opinion, I'm going to say I haven't been a whole lot impressed with their capacity to do a whole lot. So I'm really hoping the OFA is able to be the body that steps up and shows some leadership at this time. And I'm very excited to see how the new structure and infrastructure of this sport will how that will manifest over the next couple of years with all these changes coming down.
Well, you know what? That at this point in time, as we clearly stated, this is nothing but rumors and assumptions that we're making. But at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff that we have heard has come from some people that we feel are relatively connected to it. Now, in the sense of what's going to happen, who knows? One of my favorite sayings from my old basketball coach in high school and my accounting teacher is, it all comes out in the wash. So at the end of the day, once the fall season is over and the OFA doesn't need to be worrying about managing sort of the day-to-day operations of football happening all over the province of Ontario, once they can collect their sort of thoughts and take a look at what happened this season, we'll probably get a lot more information. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do, and I'm really hopeful that OFA and Football Canada will get together and come up with a fantastic solution, because I think it's time for them to really put their money where their mouth is and really implement something that needs to be implemented. It's been far too long, in my opinion. Jesse, I want to thank you for joining the HESN podcast today. That was another fantastic conversation. I want to remind everybody, EFC 3. November 11th, 8 p.m., Bell Sensplex in Canada. It's going to be fantastic. Why don't you make one last point about EFC 3 and then tell everyone goodbye for today?
Man, I'm excited to see the talent compete against each other. We're not sure how we're going to rank the age groups, but we've got some phenomenal quarterbacks that are going to go head-to-head on the 40, the shuttle, the three-cone, the vert, the broad jump. We're going to be able to see these athletes, and not only that, at EFC 4 and 5, we're going to see their development over the last 6 months from the past EFC. So, like I said last episode, this is going to be a historic event. It's never been done before. Now we've got St. Matt's involved. We're going to have some athletes representing that program. St. Pete's, NCAFA Midget, NCAFA Pee-wee, NCAFA. We're going to put them all in a pool. coaches are going to have VIP access, and as a community, we're going to come together and do something that is going to enhance the sport. So get signed up. We only got 90, and spots are filling up quick.
Well, Jesse, again, thanks again for coming on, and there'll be, I guarantee there will be more updates coming at you from HESN in regards to football in the fall. So this is great stuff, Jesse. Thanks for coming on today, brother.
Hey, thanks, man. And I appreciate all the time you're putting in the podcast. I've heard nothing but great things on this show that we're doing, and I applaud you for all the time you put in for this.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. You know it is. Thanks a lot, brother. And there you have it, another great interview with President and CEO of HESN. We're doing big things, and like I always say, this is whenever we discuss some topics that could be a little hot button or sort of maybe a little bit of politically involved, we are never, ever going after anyone personally. This is always about the football player. This is always about the sport itself. All we're here to do is to try to make the conversation move forward, and we want to make sure that the experience for the kids is better this year and next year than it was the previous year. That's all we're ever here about, and we want everyone to make sure that they understand that that's what we're here to talk about. Like we always said, if you have any questions or concerns, reach out to Jesse or I. We are always open to have a conversation on or off the record. I believe that anybody who's involved with any level of football, whether it be coaching or you're president of an organization or president of a league, if you want to get your voice heard, there is no better way than to do it right here on the HESN podcast. And we're very excited to work with the football community going forward. And I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of the HESN podcast. I'm Tyler McLaren. Peace.
Welcome to the House Edge Sports Network.